Welcome to the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. My name is Riley Sager, and I'll be taking you along with me as I hear from some of the most influential people from all angles of the business of sports. This series guests each bring something unique to the table, from player scouting and analytics to media and broadcast, and I can't wait for you to learn how to invest in yourself while expanding your knowledge, experience, and network in basketball. Today's guest is the voice of NBA Today on Sirius XM NBA Radio, Justin Termine. Live from HallPass Studios, Justin and I dive into all things sports media and broadcasting. Justin attended Emerson College in Boston, where he majored in broadcast journalism and got a taste of the big leagues. From there, he worked his way up through different Emcee roles in the industry, while starting his current position at Sirius XM in 2005, and has worked there for the past 18 years. At Sirius XM, Justin also hosts live from NBA All-Star Games, Finals, Drafts, Combines, and the Las Vegas Summer League, while working with current and former players. I'm so excited for you all to tune in to today's episode, especially if you're considering attending the 2024 Business of Basketball Immersive experience in Las Vegas. Justin Termine, welcome to the SBC audio experience. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and it's nice to have like a studio to do it like this in it as well. I've been working at Sirius for almost 20 years. I'm not sure we got anything this nice in Sirius with a million different studios, so this is perfect.
I know, not too bad, right? I'm excited. Let's get into it. So you have a show on Sirius XM, radio show. How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that. I've been at Sirius XM for maybe almost 20 years, like September of 2005, I think. But I've been doing this particular show maybe about 12 years, like 2012, 2013-ish. So it's 4 to 7 Eastern time. I hosted with Eddie Johnson, the former NBA player. 3 hours long. And we've been going at it for maybe the last 8 or 9 years. Prior to that, I worked with a bevy of different hosts, Mike Dunleavy Sr., the former coach and player, Mateen Cleaves, Nancy Lieberman, a bunch of other people. But it's Eddie now.
A lot to get in with that. But let's go back. High school, you were playing sports, and you kind of made the decision to go into broadcast. I know you've said on other podcasts that was a tough decision for you. Like, you wanted to play sports, but just looking at your career longevity, you chose broadcast. Yeah,
there was like a couple of different things that I wanted to do my entire life. Like I knew what I wanted to do, so this is like my dream job. Mm-hmm. So it started probably in the first or second grade. My father was a radio disc jockey, so we'd like spin the records, and he'd give the weather, and he'd tell a couple of jokes, and he did it at like a small level, and then he retired, went into teaching. So I always had that kind of gene, like the broadcast gene, and then the sports gene. Loved that as well. So always kind of had my eye on that, knowing that I'm not going to, turn into the next Larry Bird or Magic Johnson, growing up in the 80s watching those guys. Got to high school, really difficult decision after my sophomore year where I could have kept playing, maybe even played Division III if I had tried out for the team, but I knew that I wanted to broadcast. So I made the difficult decision to quit the basketball team. Then I broadcasted all the games. That's not something that the school that I went to was doing before. Got into doing play-by-play, so did that my junior year, my senior year of high school, then carried that over at Emerson College in Boston, 4 years of play-by-play there, doing the weekend radio shows. So I knew from an early age what I wanted to do. I was prepping for this at like the second grade level.
Just kind of instilled in you. Did your dad give you any advice when you told him this is what you wanted to do?
No, I mean, he loved it. He gave me all the support. I guess the advice was just to work hard. So once I decided what I wanted to do, he made sure that I worked hard and, got all sorts of support from the family. So it was more just support and, hey, work hard. That was really the only advice.
That work ethic, was that something that had always been with you or really grew when you played sports and you just kind of learned the team dynamic and kind of...
I think it's just like you don't want to embarrass yourself and fail, right? I mean, so that's where the work ethic was kind of instilled. Like you do it as an athlete when you're younger and you don't want to embarrass yourself. Maybe you want to make your parents proud. And now like you're going on the air like on a national radio show and you don't want to embarrass yourself there. You want to make sure that you're prepped so nobody can say, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about or this guy's unprepared. And, you also want to please those that like put you in position of power. So I'll have bosses throughout the history of my career, like a Steve Cohen, who gave me my first opportunity, Sean Butler now. Those guys gave me the opportunity. They entrusted me with the position that I'm in. So you want to prove to those guys that you made the right decision. So I think that drives you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just your reputation. It's all the people that are relying on you who gave you the chance. And you don't want to disappoint them. So when you go into college, Emerson College, talk about what you majored in and the opportunities that you kind of created for yourself.
So I majored in broadcast journalism, which I don't think that young people need to do. Like, I would recommend going into maybe history or maybe economics, finance, whatever. Like, pick a different field, because I always joke with people about this. Like, I could have done this when I was in second grade. Like, I didn't need any training to get behind a microphone and talk about sports. I knew sports when I was in second grade, and I knew how to speak, basic English at the second grade level as well. So I could have been hosting the show when I was that young without any type of education. But I think what I did at that age was just kind of get comfortable behind a microphone. Never turned down any type of opportunities. Like I said, broadcast all the games at Emerson, did a Sunday show where, as a college student, like on a Saturday night, that's your time to go out
I know.
and have fun, right? So you want to go out and do that. So I would do that. But then I would make sure, like 8 a.m. the next morning, I was always in that studio and never missed one show throughout college. Was there every single day. So I think what it taught me was just like, hey, this is going to be competitive. I have to get comfortable behind the mic, because you jump behind the mic and people are judging you, and, maybe you get nervous. So I got my reps in and just kind of learned how to prep for shows. But yeah, really, I think it's, to be honest with you, like, broadcasting is just like self-taught. If it's not something you need to go to school for and be like, my speech pattern, how do I speak? How do I formulate an opinion? I think it's just like, be you. Like, my advice for any young person is like, listen to yourself. I had people along the way say, hey, maybe your delivery needs to be changed a little bit. You can't talk like that. You sound funny. And I would just continue to be true to myself. Like, this is how I want to present myself. I have confidence in this. And I think, like, unique personalities are the people that succeed in the business.
Yeah, I mean, just that immersive experience, it's kind of like learning a language, like you can read a textbook all you want, but it's just being surrounded by people who speak the language. It's the broadcast language and sports. So you knew sports basically your whole life, but what did those opportunities teach you that you didn't know before?
The opportunities like at Emerson and, I guess just taught me like that it's competitive and there's other people out there like that want to do this. This is viewed as something that's fun. And most of the time it is. But, you have to be willing to outwork those people, because I honestly, I think there are a million people that can do this job. What, separates me from them and, yourself or anybody else in this industry isn't necessarily, your knowledge of sports. Like, everybody knows sports, especially in today's day and age where there's a million articles, there's a million television shows. I think it's just the work ethic. Like, hey, yeah, I'm a college student, but I got a commitment the next morning at 8 a.m. every Sunday throughout the year. Like, I have to be there. And, there's not a lot of people that are willing to do that. Or you break into the industry when you get into a young age. Luckily, I'm at a spot now where if somebody has a wedding, I can go to the wedding. If, there's a funeral, I can go to the funeral. A birthday party, I can go to the birthday party. But when you're 24, 25, 26, can't do that type of stuff. Like, you have to understand that what separates you is your willingness to work, while somebody who might be just as talented is going like, nah, I'd rather go to the birthday party.
Yeah, no, I mean, freshman in college, so I definitely understand that. And just the balance, like, you want to have a social life, and obviously there's got to be some kind of balance, but the balance is tough because you're trying to do what you want to do in your career and you're working towards it. And so I know I've definitely struggled with that because, I'll avoid the parties and do the article, but then I'm like, I feel pressure. I'm like, oh, I feel like I need to go out more and that kind of thing. So what did you do in college to kind of stay focused and be like, this is for the long run?
Well, so I'll term it this way, and it's not even something that necessarily happened in college, but it's maybe because I want to play off something you said. Like, it is important to kind of go to those parties, right? Because those are the people that down the road are gonna help you out. Like, I remember going initially to these different events where I think the first finals I covered was like 2013 in San Antonio, and like I go down, I host the show, and I'm like, all right, I need to be rested because the next morning I got to get up and I got to host a show. But what you realize is, like, you're down there with your bosses and the decision makers. Those guys are going out and partying. So, like, and I was going back to the hotel room, and I think, like, that was a mistake early on because, like, maybe it takes away a little bit from the show the next day because I'm fatigued. Maybe my voice is a little hoarse. But those are the people that you need to, like, have the backing of, right? Those are the people you have to have like a shared experience of like, hey, this is not only my boss or a producer, this is a buddy, because those are the guys that kind of determine whether you have a job or not. So like that stuff is important, being like prepared in regards to reading everything, watching the games, coming up with a formula for the show. But it's just as important to create those relationships.
Yeah, no, relationships are everything. It's the thing that can get you from where you are now to something you never expected, you know? And so did you ever have any moments like that where an opportunity came up that was just like last minute, or because you knew someone and then they knew someone, like just something spontaneous like that?
Sure. Like, so I've been at Sirius for almost 20 years. When I first got there, I didn't know anybody. And I'm doing some stuff behind the scenes, and I'm just joking around with different people. And I don't even view myself as being like good with people. But I walked up to a kid. I made a joke that was maybe a little bit borderline, right? But the kids thought it was funny. Mm-hmm. That guy actually had a connection with one of the bosses. So every single time that I had been handing my disc in to the bosses, no response. Then about 4 or 5 months after being at Sirius, this guy says, you know what, I like this kid. I'm going to give this disc to one of the bosses who he knew. The next day I'm on the air. So that didn't come because I got more talented over the course of like 5 months. It just became because I developed a relationship with the right person, and that person got my work into the hands of the right person.
Yeah, my parents always told me, create your own luck. Yep. Like some people say it's luck from the outside, but it's just like being present, making those connections. So what would you tell people now who, whether they know what they want to do, it's something in sports, but are kind of lost or just want to make connections but don't know the next step?
Yeah, so it's difficult. Like I was talking with one of my bosses recently because of the pandemic. Now everybody's working from home. Like I work from home, my bosses work from home, so you don't get that FaceTime.
Yeah.
So I never would have created that connection with the guy that handed my disc in if I wasn't in the office. So it is really a difficult conundrum that like younger people have. And my other advice is I always say like the first thing is to don't get involved in it because it's a very difficult field, right? And a lot of it's based off luck. Like if I didn't hand my disc, now I was prepared and I earned everything after that, but if I didn't hand my disc to the right person, then I never would be sitting here. So I always kind of say like, don't even get involved in the field because a lot of it is based off luck. Now you also have to be prepared once you get the lucky break, but I view it this way. There are people ahead of me that aren't as good as me. Like I should be where they are, right? Mm-hmm. I'm better than that person. They have the job. Nothing I can do about it. But I'm also, smart enough to know that there's people behind me that are probably better than me, but they just never got that lucky break to be sitting where I am. So
yeah, you talked a bit about how it's changed. With just being online and the technology we have, it's not the same kind of connection, the same kind of relationships that it used to be. So I want to talk about the industry and how it's changed just since you've been in it, coming out of college and then now, like obviously the technology, but what have you seen as a result of that technology growth? Yeah,
I mean, so you got people working at home. That's one of them. The other one that's just come on like very recently is all the sports gambling. Because now like the first thing I'll sit down with like an agent, like who's trying to maybe find me a job, is like, what do you know about sports gambling? Can you handle sports gambling? So I guess that would be some advice as well, is like, understand the direction that these leagues are going in, and a lot of them are promoting the DraftKings, the FanDuel, stuff like that. So you almost have to know what's going on in that regard in order to, break in. Like being able to say, I can do something that this person can't do. Like when I first got my job at Sirius working with the NBA, we had maybe 3 different sports channels. We had the NFL, we had baseball, and we had like, say, hockey, okay? Mm-hmm. And, we had a fantasy sport. We didn't have NBA yet. I eventually got put on that, but we had a fantasy sports station pop up. I knew nothing about fantasy sports, but I just raised my hand when they said, does anybody know anything about fantasy? I said, yeah, I do. And then I just crunched, and it was, the hardest job I ever had because I wasn't passionate about fantasy sports. But the point is that you just have to have your eye on like the direction that the media is going, so you're prepared to do that. Mm-hmm. Gambling is one. The fantasy stuff was one at that point. You got to have some foresight.
Oh, it's funny you say that because my journalism class, it's called The Power and Responsibility of the Press. And so we have this opinion article coming up. And one of the topics I proposed was gambling and how these leagues, they need the next big thing that's going to generate revenue. and it's gambling.
Exactly. So it could be gambling. It could be like, hey, we want to expand overseas. So maybe it's like learn a different language, something like that. And I'm always slow on that type of stuff. Like I'm an idiot. Like you've got the Twitter. I signed up for that I signed up for like 2012 after I think it started in maybe 2008, 2009. So I was really slow on that. I'm still not on this TikTok thing. Maybe I should be. I don't post enough on Instagram. I don't have like a YouTube channel, but like that's stuff that I would recommend you start at a really young age. Like get on YouTube, get on Twitter, get on TikTok, because that's one of the other things like these companies look for, I guess, is like how far is the reach? Like I do know that we've hired people in the past that maybe aren't the best broadcasters, maybe don't do the best show, but they have 250,000 Twitter followers. Yeah. So the company's like, well, we view that as an asset. So like do something like that as a way to get yourself in.
Yeah, and it can go back to what we were saying about luck. Maybe someone sees one of your TikToks, and then that's the next big thing for you.
100%. Like, or just even developing a relationship. Like I've developed relationships with different people in different, as like, for example, I just had a mouth issue, okay, with my jaw. I got a toothache. Then my jaw got like sealed shut, which is the worst thing for a broadcaster. That lasted a month. You know how this damn thing got fixed? From a listener. A listener was listening to me complain about my jaw, gave me the advice to like, hey, I'm located in Santa Monica. That's like 30 minutes where I live. I went down to him. He got me to see another specialist because I needed an oral surgeon. And without that, like this thing would have spiraled out of control, maybe lasted a lot longer. So like that's the importance of reach. I got these awesome suits from a guy like Deepak down in DCLA. It's in downtown Los Angeles. Like got that connection through, the show and then social media. The people reach out. So like it does show you the power of like just connecting with people and how they can open up different doors for you.
Yeah. Okay, let's break that down. What are 2 or 3 things, benefits and then drawbacks to technology, at least in the sports industry, broadcasting?
Okay, so, the technology, I guess, I came down here today. I did my show, and I did it from on location with just a box and a headset. So I can travel anywhere with that type of technology. So that's the plus. The technology in regards to Twitter, like I have the reach of being able to tell you how I feel directly. You hear directly from me. I could post a video on that. I mean, I guess the drawbacks are like always being on call. So I'm expected to, I guess, tweet more about big events. I'm expected to post on Instagram, which I don't necessarily like doing. I did earlier today. I did a picture with Albert up there on my Instagram, at Termine Radio, TERMINE Radio, but you're always on call. Then the other one is just like, how many times have you seen somebody lose their job because maybe they tweet without thinking, right? Is they tweet something stupid. And I've never gone that far, but I have tweeted stuff out that's like borderline, where I'm like, is this going to get me in trouble? Then it causes me stress. And the other thing is like, I know that I've said or tweeted something that maybe somebody in the league didn't like, maybe a boss didn't like. If that's the case, then, maybe that prohibits me from, getting promoted or looking for another job. So you got to be very careful with that type of stuff.
Yeah, no, let's go off of that because you're known for speaking your opinion. This is your job. You want to tell people how you're feeling about certain events. So with technology and everyone's looking under you or looking at you under a microscope and every word you say, how have you kind of dealt with that?
Well, I mean, it's just say how you feel and you can never get in trouble. That's the way I view it, is like the rule I have is, and thank God I've never put in this position where you say something so heinous that you're required to like apologize and say I didn't mean it. But as a broadcaster, if you say something and then you get blowback from it, then you say, well, I really didn't mean to say that. Why would anybody ever listen to you again?
Yeah.
So it's like the first time that somebody pushed back at one of your thoughts, all of a sudden you say, well, I really didn't mean that. All right, then what else didn't you mean throughout the course of your entire career? Yeah. I would never listen to somebody ever again who said, like, I really didn't mean it. That's not who I am. That's not what I mean. No, it is who you are because you said it. And like, I host 3 hours a day, so that's 15 hours a week since I'm doing it 15 hours a day for 20 years. And like, I've never had to do that, thank God, but also because like, I'm responsible for everything that I'm saying. Like, I don't think it's very difficult to just say how you feel. Like people that say, oh, I slipped, I didn't mean to say it. Well, you did mean to say it. You said it. It's not that difficult. People always say like, oh, you have to fill 3 hours a day. It's not that hard.
Yeah, and then you lose your credibility for going back on what you're saying.
Exactly. So you got to stick to your guns, no matter what it is. Like, and I've said some controversial stuff, but I've said, no, this is how I feel. This is what I believe. You might not agree with it, but it's how I feel. And I have, like, 3 hours a day is too long. Like I said, it's not that much, but it's too long if you're making stuff up.
Yeah.
Like, if you're making
stuff
up,
you got to
remember what you said. Like, so even 15 years from now, like, I'm going to remember what I said because it's how I felt. If I, and it's the same thing I guess your parent would tell a kid. If you're making something up, you're not going to remember the lie in 5 minutes. So you just speak your mind, and that's what people want to hear anyway. They want to hear your true thoughts, like your authentic thoughts. And if you're lying to people, I would think people could sniff that out, and then you're tuning them out immediately.
Yeah, and speaking of your show, let's talk about your co-host.
Oh, God. No, do we have to? Oh, God.
Eddie.
I just got done with him for 3 hours. I don't want to talk about him after hours.
What's your perspective? Because you have the broadcast background, and then he played in the league. So kind of compare yourselves in terms of, like, the perspectives you each have and how that comes across in your show.
Yeah, like, I've never claimed to be anything but a fan. Like, I'm speaking up for the fan. Like, and that's also the responsibility, I think, anybody who covers the league or just sports in general is, like, I know that we have people that are involved in the league listening to the show. I know that we have coaches. I know that we have players, front office executives, people in the NBA office. And I love it if they love the show. Always love it if they give me a compliment. But that's not who they're the minority of the people listening. Like, you're not doing the show for them. I'm doing the show for the fan. Like, that's who I work for, essentially, is the fan, entertain them. And I think some people might lose sight of that, but I've always tried to keep that in mind, is like, I'm giving it from a fan's perspective. Eddie gives it from the player's perspective. And, a lot of, so he does offer a lot of good stuff from a different perspective. Like, sometimes I disagree with it or, think he's nuts. But I do understand, like, the value of that.
No, it's interesting you say that, because I think a lot of broadcasters now, they see these players coming on. It seems like everyone has their own podcast,
Yes.
JJ Redick and LeBron and, Draymond Green, everyone's just coming on with their own podcast. And that some may think that that's kind of diluting the broadcast industry in a way. You said earlier that you don't think that everyone has to get that kind of background to go into broadcasting. So what's your opinion on those players who are just, creating podcasts left and right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it because it takes away from our ability to, like, interview these guys. And I would prefer that they're given the answers to us that they're given with each other. I would say the only thing that I'm wary of, a couple of different things, is like Draymond jumps into the scene. He's talking about the new media, and then he's doing all the same stuff that the old media did. So he's like, oh, we're going to break down the game, X's and O's. And then all you hear is him, like, ripping into other players, him ripping into the media, using it for strong opinions and low-hanging fruit. So that confuses me a little bit. The only thing that I get, like, wary of is, are these guys going to hold each other accountable? Like, if you, for example, like Draymond shares, like, an agent with somebody, is Draymond going to be critical of that guy? Right. You got to be willing to do that if you want to break into the field, in my estimation. Or again, you go back to the credibility, you lose that. Like JJ Redick and LeBron are just starting up this podcast. Okay, that's great, but is now JJ Redick, who's calling games for ABC, going to be critical of LeBron at all on First Take on ABC? Or, hey, I've got this relationship, now I got to kiss up to this guy, I'm not giving my true opinion. Like, it's easy for that to seep in, and I've had relationships that have suffered as a result of me giving it a big, Charles Barkley. That's why I think he's so good at his job, is Barkley's got the relationship with Jordan. That suffered just because Barkley gave his true opinion. So I think that's my one concern, is that you're not getting a guy's true feelings because he's protecting, buddies and, shared agents, et cetera.
And we talked about gambling being the possible future of many of these leagues. Now, podcasting is, I would say, the future of broadcasting. So what do you see in the next 10 years? Is podcasting just going to take over? I mean, now you have television. It's not getting the revenue it used to because it's all going to digital, outlets and ads and sources and streaming. So what do you think it looks like in 10 years? Again,
I'm a guy who's always slow behind I'm behind the 8 ball. Like, Twitter comes out, I'm like, what do I need Twitter for? That's stupid. I was a guy when I'll never forget the DVDs came out years ago. and I had the VHS player, and I'd be like, what do I need that for? I don't need that. I'm like, yeah, I guess you do, right? And now those things are obsolete with the DVD. So I'm slow on this type of stuff, but it seems to be like going towards YouTube. I mean, you might even know better because you're the one that's studying it right now at school, and you're part of the younger generation. So you know what the younger generation is going to. Like, so maybe I should be going to you for like the direction of it, because I would say like YouTube and online and things on your phone, and maybe stuff for people without, attention spans. Like maybe the 3-hour show is too difficult, or an hour show or a half-hour show. Maybe they need it in 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, especially with my generation, everyone wants it so quick. Yeah. TikTok, you want it in 5 seconds. You want to hear the recap. The red zone, like you want condensed games. You want it, I guess, in a more efficient manner. So, like, what suffers because of that? Is it more facts or the, perspective and context of it?
Yeah, I think it's context because, like, for example, I could watch games on tape the next day, and like you could get away with doing that, and there's plenty of people that do it. The thing that I need to do for me personally, for the context, is like I need to watch it at night while it's happening, so that the next day I can come on the air and I can go, this is how I was feeling when this was going on. Yeah. I can't do that with the same level of excitement if I wake up the next day and maybe I know the score and I'm fast forwarding maybe through like the commercials, and that's taken away like the intensity that I'm feeling, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's the context, because there's no way that you can get the whole story by, watching a 5-minute recap or a 2-minute recap or just reading the box score. Yeah. Like, I think you got to watch the entire game to get a feel of the game, even a season. I think you can't just jump in the middle of a season. You got to be following the thing nonstop in order to get the true feel of it.
Mm-hmm. So for your own preparation for the show, you're on 5 days a week. What does that look like? Is your Monday through Friday schedule just packed watching sports?
Oh, yeah. So, and I always say this as well. I'm never nervous when I'm on the air. Never once have I been nervous in maybe 15, so like when I first started maybe. But now I never am. When I get nervous is as soon as I stop the show, because as soon as the show is over at 7 o'clock Eastern time, that entire time until 4 Eastern time the next day, I'd rather only be nervous for 3 hours instead of nervous for about 20
Right.
But I'm just nervous about how am I going to fill up the show tomorrow? Where's my content? And then as I'm sitting there watching the games, I have a notepad, and I'll take a bunch of notes. Like, for example, the Suns last night lost to San Antonio, right? So as that game's going on, I'm going, okay, what is their record against the 5 worst teams in the NBA? What's that juxtaposed to the other teams that are contenders? And then you'll look and you see, well, like Dallas is 12-0 against those teams. The Pelicans are 11-0 against those teams. And Phoenix is 8-4 against those teams. So, like, what I'll do is I'll jot down, like, that note, like, what's the other record? And then the next morning, I'll wake up and I'll look at my notes, and then I'll research the notes. And then I'll write those out, like, shorthand, like, all right, this is the way I want to go with this conversation. I watched the game last night. Here's what I saw with my eyes. Now I'm going to back it up with stats, and then I present it that way. And, I'll do that for the entire league, really. It's just bounce from game to game, and I'll watch some games closer than others if it's a bigger game. But that's my process is as soon as I get off the air, I start watching the games. I take my generic notes. Next morning, I wake up. I put those notes into a form that'll make an entertaining show.
See, it sounds like a lot.
It is a lot, but it's fun. Like, that's what you can't do this if you don't like it. Like, exactly. So it's one of those jobs, like, you need to love it, or else you can't do it, because it's all consuming. Like, it's nonstop. It never stops. Even on vacation, like, you're on vacation in August, you got to know, like, hey, this guy's about to get dealt. This is a trade rumor, etc. You just have to be on top of things nonstop. And again, it's 24 hours. So it's not something where you punch in at 9 o'clock in the morning and you leave at 5. So that's my other advice is you better make sure you love it, or else you're not going to be able to do it. Yeah,
no, you definitely have that drive of sports, just the passion of it. So how do you keep that going? And, what about sports, whether it's a certain one or just in general, like, is it a connection that fans have with the players, or, how they play the game? Like, what has it been for you to have that passion for all these years?
Yeah, I think it's connection. Like, you grow up and it's your way of bonding with your father. It's your way of bonding with your grandfather. You get a little bit older. Maybe it's your way of bonding with your buddies. You have children. It's your way of bonding with them. So I think it's that. And then, it just brings together people from different walks of life. I'm like from the suburbs of Connecticut. Eddie's from the inner city of Chicago. We've formed like a relationship and just a connection through that, and I think that, it happens by doing the radio show. I talk to people now that I consider buddies that have called the show for years, people on social media that I communicate. So I think it's just the way it brings everybody together.
How do your and Eddie's personalities they obviously don't clash. They work pretty well, but...
No, they clash.
But you have that back and forth relationship where it just sounds, like two guys having a fun argument over sports.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the hardest thing to find when you have multiple people working on a show is connection. That's why I didn't like, Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson being broken up, because I thought those guys just had a tremendous connection. You look at the most successful show in sports, right? It's that TNT show with Charles and Kenny and Shaq and Ernie. And what makes that? It's not because they're breaking the game down better than anybody.
Because Shaq is pouring cereal.
Exactly. It's because of the connection they have. It's because of the chemistry. It's because people see him having fun. And that might be the biggest misnomer as well. Like, I can sit there and do all those stats, right? And anybody can work hard and do that. But what you need to do is make those stats, like, entertaining. If you don't do that, then, you're lost. Like, there are plenty of more shows that are more educational than that TNT show. But those guys entertain. That's what people want to do. And I think that's what Eddie and I have is like, we just have the ability to connect, even though maybe it doesn't sound like it. And like, I'll say this, like, we get into fights and people will say, oh, it's just a stick, or is that real? Like, it's real. Like, we're really going at each other. And if you hear us going at each other, like, really hard on the air, you can only imagine what the breaks are. But I will say, like, a trait that we both share is we have a forgetful gene like 2 minutes later.
Okay.
Whereas, like, I hate his guts for maybe 10 minutes. Then I hate his guts maybe for that 2-minute break. But we can come back from that and then be absolutely laughing about something else that just took place. Like, very rarely do we do the show, get into an argument, and then like a half hour later, we're still upset with each other. As crazy as that sounds.
Well, you do have a good relationship, but there is a balance, because even if a show is just entertainment, it's going to attract a certain audience, and you're not going to have the context or the stats, the information that people want. So you do have to have that balance.
Yeah, well, so here's the word, like, where they use like the letters where I'm too stupid to know what the name of it is, but you have like a word and then you take the first letter of that word and it's like, so.
An acronym?
Yeah, maybe it's an acronym. So here you are, a college freshman, and you're telling me what the proper word is here for a guy who uses words for his career. But so the word is poke, and I think this was something that somebody in Sirius told me early on. So it's P stands for passion, all right? So you're doing a radio show, you have to have passion. O is for opinion. You have to have that, so you have to have the opinion, all right? K is for knowledge, so you have to know what the hell you're talking about. And then E is for entertainment. So as long as you check off those four, passion, opinion, knowledge, and entertainment, then I think you're going down a good path. I think Eddie and I check off all those boxes. Now, like if there's one also says like, calmness or something, or like ability to get along with each other, we might not check off those boxes, but that's not part of poke.
That's good advice. I like that. Just having that step-by-step, something concrete that you can kind of hold yourself accountable to. When you were starting out, did you ever listen to your shows and critique yourself, or did you know what you had to work on?
Yeah, we're supposed to do that, and hopefully my bosses are not listening. I do a lot of things like that the bosses do tell me to do, and I don't do them. One of them is listen back. I very rarely listen back. Sometimes I will, but I very rarely do. The other thing that Eddie and I personally don't do that we've been told a million times we should do is to, and I don't understand how shows do this, is they say, like, have a pre-show meeting. What's your opinion? What's the topic you're going to do? Eddie and I don't know that stuff. So we go into a show. I start off the show talking about what I want to talk about. Eddie reacts. I don't know how. I have no clue. Eddie doesn't know what I'm going to say to start, and then I don't know how Eddie's going to react. And to me, if I knew how he was going to react, I wouldn't be able to, like, fake outrage. But if I find out in that moment, I can, like, give you a genuine response. So we've never done that, even though that's the advice that we've been given. We just want it to, like, flow naturally, just like it would. Like, I hear it, like, First Take, when they do that on ESPN. That's a great show, obviously. Stephen A. Smith does a great job. But, like, I hear they have these, like, meetings where they're like, all right, this is the topic. What are you going to say on it? Here's what I'm going to say. Like, I could never work under those. Like, I'd have to, like, first take, I know you're paying me good money. I know this is a big stage. I'm going to have to, ask out. I can't do it. I don't know. I don't want to know the topic.
Yeah. So you like being on spot immediately.
Yeah.
Going live.
Yeah. I mean, if you're prepped and you know what you know everything about the league, that shouldn't be a problem.
So let's just say you're you're a college kid right now. Okay.
Yeah.
In 2024, how would it be different, your career, and like what you would want to do?
Oh God.
In terms of like opportunities, or how do you think it'd be different for you now?
So I guess there's more opportunities, but there's probably more competition. It's harder to get noticed. So it's like a double-edged sword right there. Like, for example, when I came out of college, Sirius had just started up. And that's why I was able to work at a big company immediately instead of having to go to like some small state, in the middle of like Iowa or Alaska, where I did get a couple of job opportunities. But Sirius was just starting up. They were looking for young talent. So I went there, was able to break in, but what didn't exist is like NBA radio. It's like you could do all sports radio, but we didn't have the specific, like NBA radio came along. There was a first iteration in 2006, 2007, which I worked with. Then it went away, came back in like 2011, 2012, with Albert Hall here of HallPass Media playing a big role in that. But that didn't exist. So now you have a whole station that's dedicated to the NBA. Perfect. I didn't know that existed. There's other things now that didn't exist back when I came in, YouTube, television, all these podcasts, whether it's Sirius, whether it's, The Ringer, which does a bunch of great NBA content. So you have more opportunities. It's just harder to get noticed. Like my recommendation, I guess, and some people do this with me, is like a young kid will email me and say, will you give me some advice, right? And then I'm like, yeah, I'll give you advice. And then they'll check in. I'll say, check in a couple months later. Give me like progress. They'll check in. And then I'll say, all right, like, listen, I like the fact that you work hard. And I'll pass along your information to somebody that can actually help you. I don't hire. I'm just, a host. But the producer can, maybe a boss can. So like, basically it still comes down to formulating or forming, relationships with people. That's the most important thing in any walk in life, which I didn't know. But I wish somebody would have told me that back in college. I'm just like, if I work hard and, I know what I'm talking about and I'm entertaining, I'll get a chance. Like, that's all important. But the most important thing is formulating the connections. So, like, make sure you do that. Like, sometimes it helps to go to a school like, I went to Emerson, but Syracuse, where everybody's in the media, Fordham, everybody, East Coast wise, at least the media, million guys went there, and those guys help each other out. So, like, choose the right school and then form connections.
Yeah, and stay consistent with those connections.
Yeah.
What would you tell people who want to go into the sports business industry, but they don't know exactly what? They don't know who to talk to. They don't know the direct path, the next step, but they know they want to be involved somehow.
Sports business school. Isn't that what you guys do? Sign up for sports business school with Albert and Warren and like head out to Las Vegas and make connections. But I mean, it's something like that's perfect because you go out there and then you pick the brains of people in the field. So like even that, like I'm not a professor or anything, but if I'm teaching a college class, it's like these people should be reaching out to people in the industry that they want to get into to find out like what they would like and what maybe they wouldn't like about the field to see if it's for them before they like invest all this time. Like you don't want to get 5 years in and then go, all right, well, maybe I picked the wrong thing. And I've seen a lot of people do that. Like by then it's too late to get back maybe into a different field. So.
Yeah. No, that exposure and just even if it's something that you don't know, you just got to test it out. Like for me, when I was in high school, I was doing NCAA.com writing like, it was writing, but more like behind the scenes of the website. And I thought that was so helpful because I learned so much about the industry and how it works in terms of like what goes on behind the scenes versus an on-air production. And like, while that's not what I want to go into, like I want to be on air, like it was just so helpful. So what do you think is so important for kids to know these days about kind of knowing all the roles?
Yeah, I mean, that's important. Like I came up through Sirius, like at first if the first job I had out of college was like a little small station in like Massachusetts and New Hampshire where I was driving around doing the sales. So I even got to learn about the sales, right? And realize like, hey, this is difficult. So now I understand the role of the salesperson who's selling the commercial spots during our shows. All right, so I know what that person is doing. Then I went in and I was running the board. Like, so I was playing the commercials. All right, so now I have an understanding of what goes into the technical side of it and running a board and, going to breaks and playing all that type of stuff, playing like audio. Then I produced for a little while, and I understood what that took, which is calling up guests, making sure my hosts are prepared. So it kind of like had every job that's behind the scenes leading up to my ultimate goal of being a host. So I think that does make it easier for me to relate to other people. And let's be honest, like if you're getting into this field, the chances are like there's more jobs behind the scenes than there are in front of the camera or on the mic. Right. So you could want to get in front of the mic, but a lot of people that I came up with that had that intention ended up behind the scenes. So you have to understand, I think, both sides of it.
Yeah, but also the more you know about other people's jobs, like I'd say the more you're respected, right? And it's just kind of differentiating yourself between the competition, you know?
Of course. I mean, if you know like what it takes to do a certain type of job, like, but that goes back to any field. You want to be a teacher? Right. All right, like follow around the teacher for a little while. You want to be a nurse? Follow around a nurse so you know exactly what goes into it. Because it's not just like, hey, I watched the game and then I hop on the air the next day. I'm like, hey, this is what I saw. I mean, it's, copious amounts of notes. Maybe it's like talking to somebody that I've met within the field that was like a GM around the time of, free agency. Hey, what do you think about this? Am I an idiot for thinking this way? Or is that kind of how you feel? Same thing with a coach. Like I've worked with several different coaches now over the years. Am I breaking this down the right way? And, am I not? Like you tell me. So, that type of stuff's important.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about Summer League and SBC. Like you have that mentorship, but then you also have the exposure to so many different things. And it's not always what you expect. There's a lot of unexpected that comes with this industry. So tell us a story about something that kind of caught you off guard when either you were first starting out, it wasn't what you expected, either radio or just something about.
Yeah. All right. So, wow. So you put me on the spot here. I can give you, I guess, funny stories. I mean,
let's hear it.
All right. So I'll give you a funny story because again, like it's the, again, it's the same thing with everything. Like it's the connections that matter. But I first broke into the industry and I'm like 24, 25 years of age. And I'm working with like Rick Barry. I'm working with Ala Abdelnaby, who's now doing the Sixers television broadcast as their analyst. I'm working with Rick Kamla, who is over at NBA Entertainment, also now is at Sirius XM. So I'm just trying to like break in, and I'm trying to think of something that won't get me in trouble because there are like or just like out anybody because there's so many funny things that happen behind the scenes. But
maybe like a favorite Summer League moment. Or story, any?
Yeah, all right. Well, I'll give you that.
Okay.
All right, because I'm thinking like every funny story is like makes somebody look bad, so I don't necessarily want to do that. All right, so let's go to Summer League, and I guess I can like equate this just to the growth of Summer League as well, because I know they got the documentary coming out. So I started covering that maybe 2011, maybe 2012. It was Sam Mitchell and myself doing the first ones, and just to show you like the growth, we would get guests. The way we would get guests is we would stand by the bathroom. Or set up our thing by the bathroom. Everybody's got to use the bathroom.
Right.
So we're like getting Jerry West for 20 minutes. We're getting like Tom Thibodeau for 20 minutes. Whoever we wanted. The biggest names are standing by 20 minutes, a half hour, because it's like a relaxed atmosphere and nobody's out there at this time. Like this is on the concourse, which if they're doing it there now, like you're nuts. You can't do it. The guys would be swarmed.
Oh, yeah.
So first couple of years, we're doing the shows from there. Then maybe like 3 years later, it starts to get too big. We're bringing guys like Jason Kidd up, I remember vividly, a couple of other big guys, and everybody's just swarming. And it gets to be too much. So then we moved down closer to the court, and now we're right behind the court. But again, it's a great event because you're getting like Mark Cuban for 20 minutes. You're getting Jerry West we did an interview with Jerry West a couple of years ago, like a half hour. Imagine spending a half hour with Jerry West. Yeah. You're getting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You get 20 minutes with Rich Paul. It's just guest after guest out at the Summer League. So that's my favorite event to cover because everybody's so accessible and, you're relaxed as well. But we cover all the events. We cover the NBA Finals. We go to training camps. We cover the All-Star Game. We're at the lottery. We're at the draft. The Finals is my favorite from the perspective of the history. But in regards to like just the access we have to people and how willing people are to share, it's definitely Summer League. That didn't turn into a funny story though.
No, I It was kind of funny. Started off with the bathrooms, then concourse, and now like I'm trying to picture.
Then it got less funny as we moved along.
No, I'm trying to picture if you had set that up on the concourse now. I mean, even last year, there was a YouTuber who was just walking the concourse, and behind him was a trail of 50 kids who just wanted an autograph. So I can only imagine if you had Jerry West right there for 30 minutes.
No, I mean, exactly. Well, in all fairness, like, I'm not sure if the 12-year-olds, they might be more interested in the YouTuber than Jerry West. I don't know, but you get the point. Yeah, you can't like trot out LeBron James there anymore, whereas a couple of years ago you could.
Right, and that just speaks to Summer League. Like you said, access. Yes, people are more accessible, but it's just 11 days of fun, It's not the pressure of, either a tournament. Like, the guys are there and they're trying to prove themselves, but then the fans, like, it's such a different experience for them. So just talk about that since you've been coming to Summer League.
Yeah, I mean, like, so I'll just give it to you from my perspective with my buddies, like all my college buddies, and this makes it harder because now I can't get to sleep before I'm hosting like these 4-hour shows where I'm interviewing all these important people. It's like, all right, Jerry West, I'm sorry, my eyes are bloodshot. And now I got all my buddies coming out to meet me from college because they use it as a vacation.
Yeah.
They get to go to Vegas, which is fun. They get like access to like all these big name players that they can get up close to. You feel like you're seeing the start of something as well. Like, hey, I'm there for like Wembanyama's first game.
Right.
I'm there for the first game that like, remember several years ago, like Kristaps Porzingis, like, right? He's there with the Knicks and you're there for that. You're there for Giannis's first game. So you can say, hey, like you might be watching him now, but I was there when they played the first game.
Yeah, no, something very special about it. Well, thank you so much, Justin, for coming on today. I had an amazing time talking to you. Very energetic. I appreciate the energy, and thank you.
I'm going to leave with a bad feeling. You asked me for like a funny story, and I came up empty. Believe me, there's a lot of. Well, I'll tell you one just.
Okay.
All right. So this has to do with Eddie and myself. If people get anyone in trouble, maybe it makes me look bad. But this tells you how Eddie's got my back. We're out at the NBA Finals. We're always calling people like idiots on the air. A random guy comes up to us. He calls us an idiot, and Eddie at the time aren't speaking. Like, so we're not on speaking terms, fighting so hard. And this doesn't happen often, but we're in person, end of the season. It was probably like LeBron against the Warriors. Eddie's a big LeBron fan. I'm a bigger Steph fan. Wasn't going well. So guy calls us an idiot. I go up to him. Eddie said, you going to let him say that to you? So I go up to the guy. I said, did you just call me and my buddies idiots? And I didn't realize it was a guy part of a wedding party. So big party. Guy comes over, picks me up, throws me on a table. Eddie, who right now wants to kick my butt, comes over, defends me. I get behind Eddie, and I start going, that's what I thought, guys. Eddie's 6'8", so I got a little protection.
Right.
So I got a little bit more confident, but that helped repair the relationship.
Okay.
Which at that point was not on good terms. That kind of saved it. So Eddie really does have my back.
Oh, my gosh. That's funny. That's brotherhood.
Yeah, exactly. Now we can wrap it up. Now I feel a little bit better. I gave you a little
All right.
something.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you, Riley. I really appreciate you having me on.
Good talking to you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of SBC Audio Experience with Justin Termine. If you enjoyed hearing about Justin's inspiring story of breaking into the sports world as much as I did, please make sure to share his episode with your friends, like us on social media, and subscribe and leave a review. You can find the show notes at sportsbusinessclassroom.com/Justin-Termine. Let us know if you listen, and if you enjoyed this episode, tag us on your Instagram story at Sports Business Classroom. Text it to a friend and spread the news of the SBC Business of Basketball Immersive Experience. This episode is also brought to you by HallPass Media, a full-service marketing agency that specializes in brand consulting, event management, digital marketing, and creative design. For more information on HallPass Media, go to hallpassnetwork.com.